What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about which ratings and abilities and everything matter for edge players within Madden 26. Now, this is a little bit new because making it an edge position as opposed to being a defensive end now, and so we kind of have to talk about things slightly differently, but nonetheless, let's talk about edges today. I'm going to kind of group them together. It's going to be your pass rushers on one side and the other. It's going to be the edge of your defense, and that's why the terminology has changed. But even if we talk about a player like a TJ Watt as an example, who is truly a left outside backer, we'll speak about it as the same as if he's a left edge. Now, they have kind of updated things this year, depth chart wise, formation subs wise, but it gets a little bit wonky, and I don't think that they have it 100% correct. Most of those guys that were previously outside backers are now listed as edge, like TJ Watt, so you'll see there aren't very many outside backers here. But again, if you run a 3-4 system, you can run your Sam or Will backer as your edge. So again, there's a little bit of nuance there, a little bit of wonkiness, but no matter what, your edge players are going to be players that you expect to get pressure on the quarterback. And as such, you need them to have certain attributes, certain traits. Number one, your prototypical edge player is going to be a Micah Parsons. You're going to want to have a guy that can get after the quarterback and get after them quickly. There are a lot of things that matter for this, and as I've stated with some of the other positions, the most important things, in my personal opinion, for this position is going to be superstar abilities. Now, there are specific ones that are the most important. Some of these X factors are really good, such as unstoppable force. But we're going to take a look at Aiden Hutchinson because I can actually modify his traits because he's on my team. But something like unstoppable force is good. Fearmonger is good. Relentless is good. These are all things that improve the number of pass rush attempts that a player can make. It makes them less impactful on their fatigue and those types of things. It increases their amount of pressure that they get on the quarterback. All good things. If you can get one of these X Factor abilities, super important. There are a handful of other abilities, just base superstar abilities, that are really useful. Things like Edge Threat Elite and Edge Threat, which are going to improve your ability to rush the quarterback from the edge. El Toro, which is going to give you dominant bull rush wins. And then there's a handful of other ones, but you're generally looking for abilities here that kind of override the base animations within the game. A base edge player is going to take a little while to shed their blocks. So if I was just using one of my backup defensive ends, which are still very good edge players, they're going to take a while despite having decent finesse moves, athleticism, decent block shedding. They're going to take a while to get off of most of their blocks because it's so animation driven. So what you want is abilities on your edge players that override those, that give you quicker animations, quicker block sheds, quicker pursuit to the quarterback. And so that's first and foremost. What goes along with that are some ratings that you might not realize. Number one, if we talk about ratings, outside of talking about abilities, which are the most important thing, you're going to want to take a look at their athleticism. And that's not necessarily surprising, but there's some things that go along with this that tie in that most people might not be exactly aware of. And yeah, you want good speed. I'm talking 85 plus, really anything closer to 90 like we saw with Micah Parsons is going to be ideal. That's going to allow you to match the speed of pretty much any quarterback in the game and get after them accordingly. Acceleration, 90 plus is what you're looking for. You need to be able to get up to top speed. You need to be able to get to the quarterback. But what goes along with that is good agility and change of direction. If your player does not have good agility and change of direction, they will very often struggle whenever the quarterback starts moving back there in the pocket. So Gregory Rousseau is a good example where he's got decent speed, good acceleration, decent agility, but his change of direction is horrible, 68. So if he ever has to make a big change of direction to get to the quarterback, he's not going to be very effective at it. Then we take a look at Aiden Hutchinson. His speed is not what you want it to be, 82. That's solid for a defensive end, a defensive edge player, a defensive lineman, whatever you want it to call it. But it's not good per se. 89 acceleration, solid. It's kind of right around where you want it to be. Agility 85, that's kind of your minimum threshold, and change of direction 72 is pretty low. So these guys oftentimes struggle to get after a quarterback that recognizes the pressure and starts to move away from these edge players. And that's a problem. There are some things that can help make up for that, though. Some things that you might not think to prioritize on your edge players, your defensive line players. And one of those is going to be your pursuit. Pursuit is going to make up for a lot of those issues because it's going to improve your angle to the quarterback, and it's going to improve your capability of recognizing when the quarterback is moving away from your player and moving to the quarterback. So a high pursuit rating on your edge players is mandatory. Pursuit is really, really important. And it's not something, like I said, that I think people quite realize, because pursuit is something you more think about for like linebackers and safeties who have to take big pursuit angles, have to track guys down across the field. It is incredibly important now for edge players. It has been for a while, actually. But I would rank that up there with their athleticism because it ties in directly. This can make up for a lot of issues. And if you have a really athletic guy that has low pursuit, that can cause you problems and cause you to take bad angles to the quarterback and allow the quarterback to escape when you would otherwise have a guaranteed sack. And then going along with that is also your awareness and play recognition. High awareness and play recognition, we've noticed, especially based on CPU versus CPU experience that we've seen in the past, 5 years or so. Awareness and play recognition is a absolute game changer for edge players. It is going to make them get off the ball quickly and pin their ears back and utilize their moves correctly to get to the quarterback. There are a lot of times where they don't act necessarily appropriately if they have low awareness and play recognition, and they're not getting after the quarterback, trying to use a pass rush move as quickly as they could be if they have low awareness and play recognition. So those are things to keep in mind. As far as pursuit, what is a good pursuit number? 80 and above is good enough for most average edge players. But as you start to get into those high 80s and 90s, you're going to notice really good consistency with getting to the quarterback. When we talk about play recognition and awareness, we're talking 80 and above. And so you notice a big difference here between Rousseau and Mike Green. Mike Green is going to, suffer some disadvantages in that category. When we talk about pursuit, both of these guys are going to be really solid as far as pursuit is concerned, but awareness and play rec, there's a big difference here. And there's a reason why you're going to, outside of just having abilities, have more production out of a guy like Hutchinson as opposed to his backup, and Rousseau as opposed to his backup, is because of those awareness, play recognition, pursuit numbers, in addition to the other things that matter, which we'll get into now, which would primarily be your finesse moves. Now, again, it really depends on what type of defensive ends you want, but again, if you're prioritizing speed and athleticism, you're typically going to want to focus on finesse moves. Now, Rousseau here is a bit of an oddball because he's pretty athletic, but he's dominant in power moves. Actually, both of my defensive ends are really dominant with their power moves. They're really good with finesse moves as well. Rousseau's a little bit weaker finesse move-wise, but I tend to see better pass rushing animations, better block sheds, better quarterback pressures and things from finesse rushers. Power rushers tend to get bogged down quite a bit whenever they are trying to get off of offensive linemen because those moves typically take a little bit longer to execute. Finesse moves are a little bit quicker just on a general basis than those power moves are. And so a guy like Rousseau is not necessarily always going to be ideal. Now, what do you look for effectiveness? I would say 85 plus in either of the categories, whatever you're going for. 90 plus is when you start to get into that elite consistent territory like Rousseau here. He's going to be pretty consistent at executing really good power moves. He's not going to be quite as consistent at executing finesse moves. Whereas, you take a look at some of my backups, they're not going to be quite as consistent, but you take a look at Hutchinson and he's going to be effective, with 90 plus on both sides at executing whatever move he tries to execute. But again, Aiden Hutchinson typically fails to compare to Rousseau in terms of sack totals because of the lack of athleticism. Because there's a lot of times where these guys just simply need to disengage from an offensive tackle and run down a quarterback. And a guy with 82 speed is not going to be as equipped to disengage from an offensive tackle and pursue a running or mobile quarterback that's trying to escape the pocket. It really comes down to that. And, it's not always necessarily escaping the pocket. Sometimes, it's just been a long passing play. Your coverage has been good and the quarterback's moving around. You just need the guy to track him down in the pocket once he's just done a simple block shed. And Gregory Rousseau is going to have an easier time than an Aiden Hutchinson. And, your best bet out of anybody is going to be those 90 plus speed players like Micah Parsons, Jared Verse, Nolan Smith Jr. Those guys are going to be able to execute tracking down the quarterback more effectively. A Nolan Smith Jr. is a little bit more maybe of a budget compared to a Micah Parsons with similar athleticism that you can build up over time as a superstar player. But that's really what's important for these edge players. Now, I don't want you to overlook your run stopping capabilities because it really depends on what you're doing with these guys. If you are using them in a lot of nickel formations, if you're running a lot of nickel on defense, even if you're running, a 4-3 or whatever, they need to be able to stop the run. And so I'm looking for kind of minimums as far as stopping the run is concerned. 80 block shedding, strength is a really weak spot for a lot of these guys. 69 strength is going to negatively impact them in some of the formulas in the game. I'm looking for 80 plus strength, 80 plus block shedding, and those things are relatively important to me. I actually probably focus on block shedding and run stopping capability a little bit more than most other people, but in my opinion, really important. And another thing that often is overlooked, impact blocking. Again, this directly goes up against the impact blocking rating of offensive linemen, and most offensive linemen within the game are going to have, 80 plus impact blocking. Especially the good ones are going to have really high impact blocking into the 90s, mid 80s and up. So if your edge players do not have impact blocking to match these offensive linemen, they're going to get pushed off the ball right off the bat. And so they better have other ratings that make up for it, that allow them to shed blocks, or abilities that allow them to shed blocks if they don't have impact blocking that is going to match up at the line of scrimmage. And then, of course, we can't overlook the simple statistic of stamina. I noted Nolan Smith Jr. as a really good example of an athletic edge player. But you don't need these guys subbing off that often. And having a guy with 77 stamina or even 84 stamina means that they're not going to be fresh and on the field as much as you need them to be, depending on your settings. And most, leagues, most games, they're going to be subbing off, or they're at the very least going to be tired and performing at a suboptimal level. You're looking for high 80s, if not 90 plus stamina on these edge guys. You're looking for them to be able to get after the quarterback play after play after play and do it consistently. It really creates problems for you if your edge players are not able to consistently try to get pressure on the quarterback. So definitely don't overlook their stamina. And then finally, there is one last thing that we should mention, and that is their traits. And there are some pretty important traits here that are kind of mandatory for these guys that impact the way that they play now. So, Gregory Rousseau, let's take a look at his traits. You really want to make sure that they have the right traits for what they're good at. And so Gregory Rousseau, as we noted, is a power move type of guy. Well, you want to give him power rusher because he has a higher tendency to attempt power moves. He will have a higher attempt at bull rushes with the bullish trait. Disciplined. You don't want them getting face masks whenever they're trying to take down the quarterback. Big hitter, and then the strip ball trait can be really effective for creating fumbles on quarterback sacks. We take a look at Aiden Hutchinson and take a look at what traits he has, and he has punch it out, which is really effective. That's the strip sack one. And then disciplined, again, same thing. There's some other good ones like gas guzzler, higher tendency to use effort on pass rushes and whatnot. These are all really important to increase your pass rushers' effectiveness and how often they're going to attempt the correct moves that utilize their skill set in order to actually generate wins on that edge. for your defensive line and for your defense. So, that's pretty much everything that matters. There are some coaching traits that can improve your play with these players. I have not noticed any of them that are super impactful, that it's like, yeah, this is the thing to do with your edge players. But time will only tell with that, especially as they make changes to the game. But that's everything that matters for edge players within Madden 26 and Madden as we go forward. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you prefer those finesse rushers? Do you prefer power rushers at your edge position? What do you do with that position? Do you like the way that they've updated the terminology to include edge and eliminate the defensive end terminology? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. I've had some issues personally where, if you're running a 3-4 defense and TJ Watt is your edge player, he doesn't always go into the outside backer position in the 3-4 and things like that. It can be a little bit wonky, and I had the same issue with CFB. So let me know if you've run into any of those issues as well down in the comment section. But that's what I got for you guys today. So please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and as I said, comment down below. As always, I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.